It's time for the Wrestling Observer Extra.
One more time for old time's sake.
With Dave Meltzer, right here on The Law. Live audio wrestling.
And let's go. We're now smoking with the best.
Welcome back. It is indeed The Law going into hour two. This gentleman, much like John Pollock on our behalf, has had a very busy week.
Yes.
In Vegas, covering everything that goes on. And along with that, I know, Dave, for your troop of listeners and readers, this is also the Wrestling Observer weekend as well. So you just had to be going nonstop for, 4+ days?
Yeah, just nonstop as long as I can remember at this point.
Absolutely crazy.
Yeah,
well,
it's Thursday.
Before we get into the UFC, we just came off the last part of our show talking about Final Deletion. I mean, this was something that was hyped and seemed to go a little bit viral for TNA, and ratings popped up a little bit this week as well. What was your overall take on this Hardy Spectacular?
It's different, and I applaud them for trying something different. I thought it was kind of entertaining in a weird way. My thing that concerns me, obviously, is that in wrestling, when something is good, everybody copies it and forgets what made it, in a sense. I don't think it's something that you can do over and over again. But, a lot of thought went into it, and it worked.
But Dave...
at least it appears that it worked. I mean, does it turn on more people than it turned off? It appears to be yes, so therefore it was a success at this point.
But, Dave,
I don't think it's a game changer or anything, but I mean... TNA needs something, something to get attention, and it got attention.
Yeah, that's my thing. Is that okay? It was interesting and unique, and sure, it was different. But are those people really going to stick around and watch the show every week because of this? I don't think so.
I don't either. But it's like it takes time to build, and I don't know that they can build. They have so much going against them, but it worked.
It also, you mentioned the inspiration and the copy.
Yep.
What do you expect tomorrow? Because we have the angle going on with the Wyatt's compound and the New Day. Have you heard anything about filming of this?
I haven't heard filming, but I expect that they'll probably try to copy something because that's how wrestling works. If you watch WWE, I mean, you on Mondays now, you see a lot of copies of what other people are doing over the weekends. I mean, it's almost like, wow, I just saw this like in Mexico, which years ago you would never see that. But now, I'll watch something because the world is so close with the internet. I'll watch something over the weekend, and then on Raw, I'll see the exact same thing, and sometimes it's TNA too.
One thing that we have seen in the past, and we're going to see it again because they like to do it whenever the ratings are down, Vince. Vince is making his return, obviously something to do with the brand split. Have you heard anything? Is he announcing who the actual GMs will be? Or
I hear that. I don't know that for sure, but that's what I'm hearing is that they'll announce who the GMs are, and then next week they do the picks.
Is there any chance, Dave, that they will deviate from Shane and Stephanie? I mean, they seem to have laid it out that way, but are they setting us up for... I'm surprised we haven't seen Bischoff yet.
Yeah, that's why I think maybe you go with Bischoff. And you know what? I think Bischoff's been off TV for so long, and he is really good. And there's things that you can do with Bischoff that they didn't do the first time he was there.
Right.
That you really could do some good stories, especially it's so long. He's been off and have him be a stronger character. The first time he always had to be subservient to the McMahons and be their kind of a butt of jokes. And to be there to be humiliated. Don't humiliate him. At least not the first 9 months.
Yeah, keep him strong for a while. The other indicator to me, Dave, I mean, they just put out that huge DVD set on him with the big documentary and everything. Usually these things are somewhat connected.
Right. And the fact that I was expecting him on as one of the guys they would make jokes of, like Vicky and John Laurinaitis, and they haven't done it yet. And this is kind of like, if they don't do it, then it makes even more sense because it kind of builds like you have all the X, Teddy Long and everything. But why would you do all that unless you got someone like that? So do you have Shane and Stephanie running Raw and Eric running SmackDown, or Eric running Raw and Shane and Stephanie running SmackDown, which maybe would be because you got to make SmackDown the stronger show first. So I don't know. That's but
would it be stronger? Would it be
nothing to all this too?
Would it be stronger to have SmackDown with Bischoff? To me, I think it would be stronger if he was on SmackDown. Again, you just want people to watch that show,
Yeah. Well, if he has the talent, the key is the talent.
Yeah.
And it's weird because this the number one guy is Cena, but now you got an issue because Cena's not working as much. So, what do you do if Cena's not going to work a full schedule of house shows? I mean, you need someone for those SmackDown house shows. I don't think they had some B shows this weekend headlined by Bray Wyatt and Big Show, and that's not going to turn around house show business for sure.
No, it is not.
Well, apparently the Savior is on his way back, and his name is Randy Orton, and he is going to be Brock Lesnar's opponent. This, to me, is still baffling. I realize that the WWE wanted to release it because they had given UFC the promo to air at 200. My question is, though, why would you need to name an opponent when you could have just done a generic Brock Lesnar's next WWE match, SummerSlam?
Yeah.
No need to announce an opponent.
They just felt that, I was so... I didn't like the idea because you don't know what's going to happen in that match. And, if it was, what it was, I mean, if it was, you know what I mean? I think that you need to go in there, figure out how he comes out of it. To me now, he should be the number one guy in the company.
Well, I'm thinking, yeah, exactly. He should be getting the belt, so you have this idea that he could, if he is successful in UFC, you could, if you're lucky, you could have a guy with a belt in two sports.
Yeah, I don't know if they'll have him go for the championship in UFC. I'm still baffled by how that all worked out. I mean, it's just so weird to see it. And the people in Vegas, they were weird because it's like when Brock used to come out, everybody would boo like crazy.
Oh.
And nobody booed this time, but they didn't cheer that loud, but they all came to see him. But it was quiet almost. It was weird.
Interesting.
You mentioned you wouldn't necessarily put him for the title. Having said that, though, you've got Stipe versus Alistair coming up, and if Alistair Overeem happens to defeat Stipe Miocic, that is a very interesting match to throw out there, considering that was who defeated Brock. And that's the debate will be between Cain Velasquez and Brock Lesnar, and the bigger draw is probably Brock Lesnar.
It is Brock Lesnar. Without a doubt, the bigger draw is Brock Lesnar. So, yeah, so if Brock wants to fight again, yeah, you've got kind of an interesting dynamic there because who do you put him against? Do you put him against Cain? Do you put him against Stipe? But I think you wait until what happens in that championship match.
Yeah.
And the other thing, too, is you really want something big for the Garden, and John Jones was going to be like, you would figure John Jones main event at the Garden, and that's probably, I think that's slim at best. I don't think that's going to happen at all because he's going to be suspended for at least a minimum of 6 months, and it'll probably be a lot longer. So, if you need something big for the Garden, Brock would fit.
And what about Vince, though, here, Dave? Like, how far do you think they're going to let him go with this? I mean, they hardly promoted this one at all. They made it very much seem like it was going to be a one and done. I mean, how far do you think they actually let him go with this?
I don't know. That's the weird thing, because now they can say, hey, let's quit when we're ahead. Because, it doesn't do them any good for him to lose, although him going for a championship – I think is good publicity for the company, for both companies, actually.
Yeah. No, it's a tricky one for sure. I'd love to see what Vince is thinking right at this moment after what's happened, and the fact that Brock Lesnar, I think it's obvious, wants to fight again.
It felt that way really strong from afterwards.
Yep.
He just I got that feeling that he really wanted to, but he wouldn't commit to saying it. The whole thing is weird because he was like so strong a year ago about not fighting. And now he's just like loving fighting, and and watching him. I mean, the one thing he's got is he's an incredible athlete, and his takedowns were good against Hunt. When he gets top, he can keep a guy down. That's the one thing he was really strong at. He was saying, from years ago also. Yeah. So but if you've got a guy, if he can't take guys down. But he's so big and strong, he can take most guys down, I think.
Just the fact, Dave, that he said at the post-press conference, Brock Lesnar gets what Brock Lesnar wants.
Yeah. What does that mean?
Yeah.
Let's move on from Brock because we spent a lot of time on him and talk about John Jones. Of course, he has been, one of the buzzwords that's going on this past week. Jones is in a really bad state. Obviously, the A and B sample have tested positive. Question I do have for you, and I asked it to John, just wanted to doubly confirm. If he tests positive for two substances, does that mean a potential longer suspension than 2 years?
It can. It doesn't. It's every. situation is different, but the option is there. Yes.
How so? Is it an option? Is that USADA making that rule?
USADA is going to make the call, like if they feel it depends on what the substances are, I think.
And there's no release of that as of yet.
There will probably maybe there'll be a release when he is suspended, but I haven't noticed. Like the only times we get like what guys fail for, from in the USADA thing is like when it's fully adjudicated. And a lot of these cases have gone really, really slow. But I mean, even with like Tim Means, we know what his thing was because he said it. John hasn't said it, so they may not even release it. I don't know.
I think the sad thing with this, Dave, is that with this suspension, and if it goes 4 years, like Jay is suggesting,
4 years, that would be insane.
Or if it goes longer than 2, I mean, this guy's done.
Well, I'm not yet. I mean, anything can happen. Yeah.
I mean, this guy is done. He's in his prime right now. You don't let him fight for a couple more years. I mean, I'm so surprised he would let this happen at this stage of his career.
This was amazing. I mean, it boggled my mind that it happened, especially the way it happened. I know, but a lot of the guys, I mean, you saw those pictures that John was posting a couple months ago, and it's like, I don't know. He did have a big physical change, so I guess it's suspicious in that way.
Hey, you know who else had a big physical change, Dave?
Not Johnny Hendricks.
Johnny Hendricks.
Not for the better either.
Let's talk about this.
Yeah.
He looked like an old man that had no business being in the octagon. This is one of the biggest changes that we have seen since the drug testing has come into play.
Not just big changes in look, but big changes in performance.
Oh, he couldn't even wrestle, and that was his specialty, and no heavy hands.
No heavy. I mean, he said that knockout power. The guy who fought George St. Pierre, I'm watching this fight going like 3 years ago. And not just George St. Pierre, Robbie Lawler twice.
Yep.
The guy who had those wars, and he's out there, and what happened to him? I mean, it's hard not to come to the conclusion that everyone's coming to. We have no proof because he's never failed a test, but and then you think back at that whole thing of, remember when George was trying to get him tested?
You bet.
And he wouldn't do it, and then he came in, and I mean, he never had that super physique, but he hit awfully hard, and he was super strong, and now he just looks like some guy who's not, I mean, it was what happened to him.
Yeah.
One fight we haven't touched on the show as of yet is Aldo and Edgar. Aldo getting the win here. Conor, he's got to get past Diaz. I guess win or lose, they do that fight next. Yeah,
or he vacates the title, but he's real clear he doesn't want to vacate that title.
No.
So
he's so big.
Yeah.
It's weird though, because it's like, what if like George and Conor are ready to fight? Do you like postpone that again, and wait until he fights Aldo? Because if Aldo beats him, I think that him and St. Pierre's not that big of a fight.
Nope.
But if Diaz beats him, it pretty much kills that fight. So,
yep.
But he was bound and determined. The Diaz, I'll tell you what, I think the Conor McGregor Nate Diaz fight is incredibly important for UFC's future. Maybe the most important fight of the year now, because Conor's the last super draw standing. Because you can't count on Brock, and we don't know how big Brock drew yet. And Ronda's out of the picture, or whatever it is, where at least temporarily. So Conor's carrying the company. But if he loses to Diaz, he can go and fight Aldo. But I think there'll be a bloom off the rose, and the big super fight is, to me, was Conor and George. That's like a record-breaking fight.
And I don't have a great amount of faith in Conor McGregor and Nate Diaz, as far as McGregor walking out with a win there.
Nate should only be better.
That's right, and they're fighting at the same weight.
Yeah.
That's a mistake.
170, which is just such a big mistake.
Yep.
From his standpoint.
I agree with you fully, Dave. All right, we have to take a break here, but we will be talking to you. So this week in The Observer, it's just got to be the week that was. Oh, my goodness.
Yeah.
Is it double issue?
No double issue, I don't think.
All right.
But there's, and we still got whatever's going to happen on Monday or Tuesday this week.
That's true. A lot of stuff with the draft, I'm sure, coming up
yeah.
as well. All right, Dave. Well, thank you very much for taking the time out. Go get some sleep, and we will talk to you next week at the same time.
Okay, thank you. Have a great week.
You too. Dave Meltzer, WrestlingObserver.com is where you can find all of his fine work.